Welcome to another CDBC video tutorial. Today, we're going to go through the steps of the CCP process. As you can see, we are on the CDBC website, collegeofdietitiansofbc.org, and we will head over to Registrants to select Continuing Competence Program, where the website goes through the step-by-step process of your CCP. It's very helpful to review these before you start, including your portfolio. This section will tell you the types of activities that you can put into your portfolio, which is mandatory. Your portfolio can be in any format that fits with your record keeping. It goes on to give you a little more information on the self-assessment relative to the standards of practice. This section is really key, because inside the self-assessment, we are going to choose between 3 standard indicator combinations, and the ones you choose will be dependent on the tools that you have. If you are registered with Restricted Activity A and or C, one of your goals need to be related to the enteral nutrition. And if you're registered with Restricted Activity B, one of your standard indicator and goals need to be related to parenteral nutrition. Your third goal can be any professional goal that you would like it to be. This is a short description of the process we are about to complete. You can read through the steps here if you like. We highly recommend it. We also highly encourage you to review the frequently asked questions, as it goes into detail about what your reporting period is. How do you choose standard indicators if you want to report 2 goals under the same indicator, and can you do that? All of these kinds of questions are included here, as well as the rationale as to why CDBC has set up the CCP the way we have. We do get a lot of questions about that. Once you have read through this page and are ready to start reporting on your CCP, head over to Registrants Login and scroll down to select Continuing Competence Program. If you're not due for a jurisprudence exam, you will notice that the word jurisprudence is crossed off and the link is grayed out on your account. Select Continuing Competence and head over to Self-Assessment. This is where you will need to select 3 standard indicator combination. In this example, I'm going to include my client group as a combination of inpatient, clinical, and acute care. And I also have a part-time private practice on the side where I can focus on IBD, for example. Please make sure to save your changes often. And then I go through and decide where my learning needs to be focused on. If I am doing this at the beginning of the reporting period, for example, April, I'm looking forward to making goals that I can satisfy from April 1st until March 31st. If I'm doing this a little bit later in the year, I can come back and revise my goals or change my goals altogether. I'm basically looking at the reporting period that I'm required to report in. So you remember where we were on the CCP frequently asked questions page? That page will help you determine what your reporting period is. So I want to proceed to choose Standard 3, and I will choose Indicator 3. Determine new or anticipated areas of dietetic practice and acquire knowledge and skills needed to practice competently. Because perhaps I have Restricted Activity A, but I would like to become competent on Restricted Activity B. So I'm anticipating that I'll need to acquire new knowledge and skills on parenteral nutrition. And this section here is purely for your own use, to include any notes for your own tracking. So for my second standard and indicator, I will select Standard 12, Indicator 5. I am providing professional quality services that reflect the unique needs and values of the client, and I will monitor client outcomes and adapt the service plan. So I will select yes. Okay, so pay attention here. I'm only selecting yes to the standard and indicator combination that I plan to report a goal on. This will be a goal related to RA A, which is enteral nutrition. And again, you are not required to put anything here. The third goal is going to be standard 9, which is a communication goal. Write client group education materials in an organized manner using plain language. Perhaps I'm a private practice dietitian who is doing some virtual group work right now. And so I will put my virtual IBD client base here. I then save it. And once I saved it, I can head over to Professional Development Report, where I will start reporting. So here you will see that I have goals selected. I have standard 3, standard 9, and standard 12, as I had selected yes in my self-assessment. Now we're going to proceed to select standard 3, indicator 3 right here. This is where I want to comment on a goal related to my plan to become registered with Restricted Activity B sometime in the future. So I select this indicator, and then you will, along the top, see that you have the opportunity to add a learning goal with the learning activities, which if I had been organized for the year, I would have already laid out in my professional development report. I will have the opportunity to comment on a learning outcome for that goal, telling how I furthered my dietetic practice. So in this case, I'm going to enter a SMART goal here, and we want something that's specific, measurable, achievable within the reporting period. Now that I have begun working on a new clinical area, I anticipate the benefit of becoming registered with restricted activities. This year, I will undertake learning opportunities in order to be able to select the competencies that are required to become registered with Restricted Activity B in the next CCP cycle at the time for my next renewal. And this is a valid goal. It's a goal for the future and that I would have made back in April. And I would have worked my way through it towards the end of this reporting period. Such that comes March 1st for renewal, I can confidently apply for Restricted Activity B. So I will save that. Now I will proceed to learning activities. These are the activities that I undertook to achieve this goal. Here I will add an activity. It will open a little window where I will put one activity. So perhaps one of my activities was that I was able to review formulary and learned how to complete nutrition assessments for PN recommendation. Again, I save it as often as I can. And for my second learning activity, perhaps I did some mock PN assessments and reached out to some other dietitians to be able to give me some on-the-job training. It's completely valid to put 2 learning activities. And if these 2 learning activities have satisfied the learning goal that I have set out for myself, then that's all I need to do. If I have a couple more learning activities, I'll add them here. Perhaps I completed an in-house PN course. I know that some health authorities and workplaces have these. Perhaps I also did the Basic 5 course that Jen Greenwood offers. You'll notice here that historically we have required registrants to submit a proof of competency form that could be as simple as having a full registrant sign on another registrant. This is no longer required. As you can see, you can do any amount of learning and training to become competent and maintain your competencies here. So now I have added 3 learning activities related to becoming registered with Restricted Activity B. And if these 3 activities satisfy the goal that I have set up for myself, I can proceed to learning outcome, where I will describe how achieving this goal will further my dietetic practice. So this one being that I am now able to apply for restricted activity B at the end of this cycle, as I am now competent to practice the restricted activity. Now I will move on to Standard 9, Communication and Collaboration, that I had previously selected and had talked about writing some client group education material using plain language. I will select that indicator, and then here I will proceed to entering a goal for myself. So let's say that I originally started out having a goal for indicator 5, and then sometime throughout the year decided that the indicator wasn't exactly right because the goal had changed. So what I can do is go back to my self-assessment where I had selected yes for number 5, and perhaps my goal has changed so it falls better within indicator 4. Adapt communications to the client level of understanding and cultural needs. I then will select yes for this indicator, and I will select no for this indicator. And I will save my changes. I will then proceed to my professional development report, where I will open Standard 9. And I will see that indicator 4 and 5 are sitting there, and I don't want indicator 5 anymore. So I will select it and click delete goal. Then I will confirm yes, I will delete the goal. Going to indicator 9, Standard 4 is now the only one there. I select it and can now proceed with my new learning goal in this area. In this case, I will create another time constraint goal that is measurable, achievable, and time-bound, so that by the end of the CCP cycle, I would like to develop communication strategies to provide simpler and clearer information for my clients who have mental health and impaired communication capabilities, resulting in increased client satisfaction. I am then going to proceed to learning activities and enter them the same way I did previously. And perhaps I attended a conference sometime between my reporting period. There it is, my mental health and addiction workshop. I save the changes, add another activity. Perhaps I attended a lunch and learn that was relevant to this goal. So effective communication with post-stroke patients with comprehension and speech impairment run by SLP. Again, if these 2 learning activities satisfy my goal, then I can call that complete. I am required to have a minimum of 2, but then again, I will add another one there for good measure. This one speaks to collaborative interprofessional work with SLP and in my community health unit, perhaps, or a private SLP in my community, if I have a private practice, for example. One more, and perhaps I did a reading, and I see this quite a lot, where a registrant will say that they did a literature review, and my response to that would be, I would love to see a smattering of articles that you have read, so it's always nice to see the titles of the literature that you've read. So I will save the changes and go to my learning outcome. And here I will demonstrate how I changed my dietetic practice. So you will note here that I did include information on how I measured this. It's difficult to demonstrate that clients' needs and understanding have improved. So I was able to capture a reduced need to provide repeat educational and intervention based on my informal statistics that I took. And I go to Standard 12. This is the one that, because I'm registered with Restricted Activity A, I do have to put something that speaks to enteral nutrition. So I will have a goal here for EN, and you will notice that it's not going to go under the classic one that looks like it's the only option. And the one we often see dietitians using for EN and PN is Standard 2. meet requirements for practicing specific restricted activities. So because if you're someone who is registered with restricted activities A, B, and C, for example, you will have to have one goal related to yen and one goal related to PN. And these goals might not be under the same standards indicator combination. So be creative. If your EN goal has to do with communication, go to standard 9, which is what I'm trying to demonstrate here. Going back to standard 12, monitoring clients' outcomes and adapt the service plan as the client's needs change. So my EN goal this year might have to do with something I need more knowledge on. And I have selected some home blenderizing tube feeds. And I have selected home blenderized tube feeds so I can confidently aid clientele who want to switch from commercially prepared formula to blenderized tube feeding. And I think this goal fits really well to a clinical setting, and it can also fit well to a private practice setting or a home health dietitian setting. And then I will move on to learning activities. This is where maybe I consulted Pen Access for some information to get a good concept and understanding and background information. Maybe I have some colleagues that are quite well versed in blenderized tube feeding, so I have had an informal discussion or lunch and learn with them. Those things are all valid to put into this section. And maybe I may have attended a pump session where I have learned about the strategies to maybe modify the pump, the bag, and the tubing to be able to accommodate blenderized tube feeding. Here's an example of a literature search where I have done a lit review and included several examples of literature that I reviewed. I can then go to learning outcome where I will describe how this goal furthered my dietetic practice regarding restricted activity A. So now I am confidently able to speak to the use of blenderized tube feeding as an alternative to using expensive and difficult to access prepared formulations. Once you are satisfied that you have completed your CCP and are ready to submit it, you will be able to do so starting on March 1st until March 31st yearly. And just note that this CCP needs to be submitted before you can proceed to renewal. You will be able to submit your CCP and proceed directly to renewal. 10% of the CCPs will be audited. So this is it for my video for you today. I hope this is helpful. Please remember to read the CCP page on our website. There's valuable information there for you to assist you in completing your CCP submission. If after watching this video you still have any questions, feel free to reach out to CDBC at info@collegeofdietitiansbc.org.